Dave Wilson. I'm from Zimmer Biomet. I've been asked to walk you through an instrumentation package for a pressure retaining knee. So I'd like to do that. If you have any questions, save until the end because I'm on a time clock. All right. So what we're going to do is after all the prep is done, we're going to use a 9mm drill. We're going to drill a hole into the distal femur because we're going to use this distal resection guide with the rod. And on this, we can set our valgus. On this, I've set this to 5 left because the surgeon is doing this like 5 degrees. We have the cutting block here, so we put this up the femur, impact these spikes. Once we're there and we're happy with our position, we're also cutting to the mechanical axis. Once we're happy with that, we will drill or just pen at these 0-degree marks. That allows the surgeon to move the block forward or backwards to get the cut that they're not. So we do that. Once we are positioned, again, we drill it and pen it. We leave the block, take everything else off. We'll make our distal resection at that point through the slot. Once we're done with the distal resection, we want to size the femur. We also want to set our external rotation. So this guide will do that for us, a sizing guide. And the way this works is we'll position these feet on the posterior condyles. The stylus will go on the anterior femur, usually the lateral side, which is the highest side. From there, we can read our size which will be our components. We also, these holes here allow us to put 0 or 3 degrees of external rotation. I'm going to do 3. So we'll drill through the hole, 3 holes here. We'll leave the pins in place. We've taken these ones out. Leave the pins in place. Take this off. There, whatever size we had here, we'll use on the 4-in-1 cutting block. We leave the pins in because we're going to slide this block over those 2 pins. And that's going to allow us to replicate the 3 degrees of external rotation that we set with that guide. Once we get the block on the distal femur, we'll throw a couple pins in here, take those 2 pins out. So we now have the block in place and it's firmly seated on the femur. We'll do one thing first before we actually make any cuts. We use this angel wing or feeler gauge. And what we're trying to do here is put it up on top just to be sure we're not notching the femur. So we don't want to do that, obviously. So if we're good with that, we're pinned, everything's in place. Do our anterior resection first, posterior resections, anterior posterior chamfers. We also will, while it's still pinned down, we'll prepare our leg holes that will match the femur and the final implant. So if we're happy with all that, we take our pins out and we've pretty much finished our femur as far as cuts. We'll take the sized femoral trial that matches the block, use the impactor. We'll impact that onto the distal femur, and now we'll move on to the next step. So the next step of the procedure is we're going to resect the proximal tibia. I can see someone was here that actually looks at the world upside down. Block on. And so with this block, what we're going to do in all seriousness is we are going to do 3 things. So we're going to set our posterior slope of our resection. We're going to set our position on the distal tibia, the medial-lateral position at the center of the crest on the distal tibia. And we're also going to determine our depth. So on this case, we're going to use a 10 on this stylus, and that's going to, off the lateral side or unaffected side, that's going to tell us that we're going to cut 10 millimeters down from where that stylus hits the tibia. So we've set our ML, we've set our slope, our block is at the right depth, so now we will pin it. We'll also use the 0 holes here. Once we pin it, we can take everything off except for the block. And at that point, we'll make our proximal tibial resection. And from there, we'll pull this off, take the pins out, we're ready to prepare the tibia. So on the tibia, for preparation, we want to size it, and we want to also prepare a cone hole and a cruciform punch to match the final implant and the trials. So we'll use this, we'll set it on top of the tibia. We want to get the best position we can, which really means that we want to cover as much cortical bone as possible without hangover. We don't want any of this metal to hang over. because that'll get into the soft tissues and can be painful. So once we have the right size, we will pin this. From there, we'll put on the bushing, because the first thing we're going to do is prepare for the cone on the implant. So we'll take our drill guide, our drill, and our bushing, drill down to prepare that hole. After we do that, we'll use the cruciform punch, which is size specific. So you want to double check that. This goes down through here. We punch it down in. After we've done that, we'll take it off, take off the pins. We're ready to put our trial in. So the trial can either be put in by hand, or you can use an impactor, or you can whatever works for you. And so you put that in there, and next thing you do is pick your trial insert. So this is a 4, so we'll grab a 4 insert. And we now have the trial femur, we have the trial tray, and now we have a trial insert in place. Typically the surgeon will bring this back into extension, because now they're going to prepare the patella. So at that point, we'll measure our patella, the thickness, because we want to make sure we put back, once we put the implant in, we put back this, we have the same thickness as we started with, so the implant and the resected bone. So we'll measure the thickness, use the resection clamp, make our resection, use a sizer on the resected patella, determine what size we want. Once we get the size, we're going to take our lug hole from the femur, we're going to drill our 3 lugs, which matches the trial. From there, we'll put the trial on. So now we have all trials, right? We can now bring the patella back on top. We can go through a full range of motion with the patella and everything to make sure that it's tracking correctly. If we're happy with that, what we'll do is then go on to the final components. First thing we're going to do though is we're not going to determine our final insert, our tibial insert, after we cement. So I'll ask for the tray first. We'll put cement on top of the tibial tray, put it down into the tibia, impact this with the impactor. We'll use a curette, clean off any cement, excess cement we may have. Next, we'll put on our femur, same process. Bone 2, take the impactor, pack this onto the distal femur, take our curette, clean out the bone cement. So now we have our femur and tray in. We're also going to do our patella, put cement on the back, on the bone. We have a clamp for that, so we can clamp down. And what we'll do is we leave this clamp on until all the bone cement part. So you'll be an extension at that point, clamp on. And then with this, we're going to put our insert back in, because we don't really know what that bone cement's going to do to the gap. You know? So we'll put this back onto the tray, which is the same one it would fit. And we're going to take this knee into extension, and that way we're pressurizing the bone cement. We want the cement going into the femur and into the tibial bone, and leave it there until it cures. After that, we'll do a final range of motion. But before we do that, we'll take this out and put in the real implant. Everything's together now. We'll bring the patella back to a final range of motion. If we're happy with that, we're done.